This is the third in a series of video tutorials related to complex document formatting in Microsoft Word 2013. At this point, you should have already completed workshop parts 1 and 2. In this workshop, we'll continue with our document that has already been formatted into document sections and has had custom headers and footers applied to each of the document sections by applying custom styles to the body and heading text. Before we begin, make sure you have the Microsoft Word 2013 workshop document open on your computer so that you're ready to go. The Styles tool in Microsoft Word is something that most people have never really explored. What styles allow you to do is to tell Word what the content of each piece of text in your document is, rather than simply specifying whether it should be bold, italic, underline, of a certain font size, and of a certain spacing. By using styles, it allows you to completely overhaul the formatting of a document very quickly, rather than having to go through and individually reset each part of the document text with the new format. Let's turn to the Microsoft Word document that we've been working on. As you can see, this has already had the document sections applied and has custom headers and footers applied into each of the document sections. We're going to continue by adjusting the styles. On the Home tab, you'll notice the Styles section provides you with a number of default styles based on the document template that you're using in Microsoft Word. If you didn't select a specific document template, most likely you're just using the default basic document template that Microsoft provides for blank documents. That's certainly the case with this particular file. What we're first going to do is change the formatting of our normal text. Now you'll notice with all of this text that I'm selecting, it's showing up as being normal text. The blue line around the outside means that all of the text in this document has not had a style applied to it. It's just being considered normal text. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to change the font of everything in this document by adjusting the normal style. Now there are a number of ways to do it. One way, you can right-click on the normal style and select Modify. This will bring up the Style Properties window where you can change the font formatting, size, set bold, italic, underline, and even format things like numbering, language, borders, paragraphs, and fonts in more detail. We're not going to do that. I find that it's much faster and typically allows you to get the results that you want more quickly by simply formatting a block of text the way that you want it and then updating the style. That's what we're going to do today. So let's select our first block of normal text. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the body text to a font other than Calabrese. I still think that Helvetica is one of the nicest fonts in terms of a very clean and consistent look across multiple systems. So I've set it to Helvetica. I'm going to reduce the font size to 10, and I'm also going to adjust the paragraph settings. You'll do that, you'll open up that dialog box by clicking on the small arrow for paragraph settings in the bottom right corner of the paragraph section of the Home tab. So we'll click on that. I'm going to leave the spacing after, but you can see here are some of the options that you have. Now what a lot of people will do with paragraphs is they'll simply put an extra return character in between paragraphs to get that spacing. When you use styles and you use paragraph settings, you can just tell Word, hey, I want this many points of space between my paragraphs. And you can see in the preview here how you can set your spacing in between paragraphs. So that means whenever you start a new line, automatically it's going to space them out for you. We're going to set it custom at 10 point, and we're going to put the line spacing to 1.5 lines to make it just a little bit easier to read. I'm going to click OK, and we're going to see that now my paragraph is formatted exactly the way that I wanted it to be. I have an automatic space after the paragraph. My lines are spaced at 1.5, and my font is set to Helvetica. So this is the way that I want normal text in this document to look. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to update the normal style, which will change the format of all of the text in my document. So we're going to right-click on Normal, and I'm going to choose Update Normal to match selection. Now what you'll see now is that all of the text in my document has been reformatted using the updated normal style to be Helvetica 10 with 1.5-inch line spacing and space after each paragraph. Well, the really cool thing about styles comes when we start working with things other than the normal text. Now what we're going to do is we're going to work our way from the top to the bottom of the document and adjust the styles for each of the pieces of text in this document that should be formatted as something other than normal. So let's start with the document title on the title page. Just like I did with the normal text, I'm going to change the format to what I want it to be, and then I'll update the style to match my expectations. So for the title, I'm going to choose Georgia as my title font. I'm going to increase the size quite a bit, maybe as high as 48. That looks good. I'm going to change the paragraph settings so that there's no space after paragraphs, and I'm going to set the line spacing to single for my title. I'm also going to center it. It's pretty common to see title pages with centered titles, so that's what I'm going to choose for this particular document. Now that I have my document title formatted the way that I want it to be, just like we did with the normal style, I'm going to right-click on Title and select Update Title to match selection. Now we'll move on to our subtitle. I'm going to select the text, center it, switch it to Georgia. It's not going to be quite as big, maybe size 14, centered. I'm also going to remove the space after and set the line spacing to single. And we're going to set this as the subtitle format. So I'll right-click on Subtitle, select Update Subtitle to match selection. I'm going to choose to leave the attribution for this document in the subtitle format as well. So since we've already set the format for the subtitle style, all I have to do is select the text and click on Subtitle, and it'll automatically be formatted the way that I want it to be. So we have our title page. I might decide to go in here and space these out a little bit. Let's look at it as a full page and see how that looks. Maybe a little bit further down. You can space it however you think looks nicest. We're going to move down. You'll notice now that we've had some formatting changes in our headers. The reason for this is that our headers were set as normal text. So when we updated the normal text, it got rid of the underline format that we had set. So I'm going to quickly run through the headings and fix that. What we're going to need to do is select the entire line, go to the Home tab, and set it to underline. And remember, because these headers are not linked, we'll need to do that in every document section. So we'll go through, select, set it to underline. Go through, select, set it to underline, and then we'll get all the way down to the end in the references section. Select, set it to underline. Now, as long as we don't make any more changes to our normal document style, these style modifications will persist in the document. So I'm going to save it since we've done a little bit of work and go back to the top of the document. We have the title page set. Now we're going to start and we're going to set our level 1 headings. In Word, level 1 headings are denoted with the style heading 1. But again, we're not going to use the default. We are going to use Georgia since that seems to be a nice font for headings and we have it on our title page. I'm going to select Table of Contents. I'm going to change the font to Georgia. If you don't have Georgia on your system, again, feel free to use another similar font. I'm also going to underline and bold the text and raise the font size up to, let's say, 24. I think that looks pretty good. Now let's check our paragraph settings. For this, I think it probably would be nice to have about 12 points of space between the heading and the following paragraph. I'm also going to get rid of the line spacing, make it single, but we'll put that 12 points of space in between the title and the following text. So let's hit OK. Now that we have that formatted the way that we want it, I'm going to right-click on Heading 1 and say Update Heading 1 to match selection. So now that we have our Heading 1 style defined, we simply need to go through the document and identify all of the Heading 1s in this file. So we have an executive summary. That'll be a Heading 1. The way that we have this document set up, we're probably going to want to make Bill Gates' biography its own Heading 1 section. So let's go up here and we'll type in Bill Gates biography. We'll select it and we'll say that is a Heading 1. That means that most of the items under here are going to be either Heading 2 or 3. So let's try and find a nice way to format our Heading 2s. I am going to leave them as Helvetica, but I'm going to raise the size quite a bit. I'm going to bold them, and I'm going to change the spacing from 1.5 lines to single. Let's see how that looks. I think that looks pretty nice for this particular document, so let's stick with that. Now that we have our Heading 2 defined, again, we're going to have to pop up to the Styles toolbar, right-click, and say Update Heading 2 to match selection. So we have this style defined. Now we have most of our styles defined, so we'll simply need to scroll through the document and apply the appropriate styles as they come up. So here we have information about Bill Gates' time at Microsoft, which should be a Heading 2. Under this, we have a Heading 3, which is related to basic. Now, for this Heading 3, I think I'm going to decide to bold the font. We're going to raise it up just a little bit to size 12. We're going to change the paragraph settings so that it's 0 points from the following paragraph, and we'll set the line spacing to single. Let's see how that looks. I think that looks pretty good. Now, if we wanted to, we could even do things like centering certain subheadings. Maybe that would be nice. Let's do that. So for our level 3 heading, we're going to center it, Helvetica, size 12, bold, with no space before or after the paragraph. So now that I have my Heading 3 styled the way I want it, once again, we'll pop up to the top, right-click on Heading 3, and say Update Heading 3 to match selection. So we're going to continue through this document looking for headings. The IBM partnership is also a subheading under Bill Gates' time at Microsoft, so that should be Heading 3. We'll keep going down. Windows, also related to Bill Gates' time at Microsoft, Heading 3. It looks like management style is also part of the discussion of Bill Gates' time at Microsoft, so we're going to set that to Heading 3. Same thing related to the antitrust litigation. Appearance in ads. This should probably break back out to Heading 2. Post-Microsoft, Heading 2. Personal life, Heading 2. Philanthropy, Heading 2. Recognition, Heading 2. Investments, Heading 2. Books and films, Heading 2. and references. This is a major document section, so we're going to go back to heading 1 for the references. Now what we'll see here, if we view multiple pages, is we now have a really nice looking document with styles all the way throughout it. Now one of the really cool things related to styles is that it allows you to really quickly and easily move document sections around. And I'm going to go to the View tab and turn on the navigation pane. Now what we'll see here is a roadmap of our entire document. You can see exactly how it's organized. The really cool thing about using styles in Word is if I decide that I think recognition is more important than his appearance in ads and I want it to appear earlier in the document, I can simply click on this in the navigation pane, drag it up, and all of a sudden all of that text in that section in my document appears ahead of appearance in ads. So you can really very quickly and easily reorganize a document once you have it set up appropriately using styles. The other really cool thing about using styles in Microsoft Word is that it allows you to auto-generate certain parts of your document. For example, a table of contents. I'm going to show you how to do that right here. We'll go to the table of contents page. I'm going to zoom in so that I have the page width here. So we're on our table of contents page in the file. Since we have set up document styles that tell Word not only how each piece of text should be formatted, but also what it represents in the context of the whole document, we can now have Word auto-generate a table of contents using those level 1, level 2, and level 3 headings that have been applied throughout our document. So I'm going to go to the References tab under Table of Contents, and there are some built-in formats that you can use. Since we want total control over this table of contents, we're going to say Custom Table of Contents. Now this will give us a number of options. We can use formats either from template, we can use the classic format, and you can go through and look at them and see which one looks nicest or most appropriate for your particular document. I'm going to use a formal. Now under Show Levels 3, this is the heading levels that you want to appear in your table of contents. For this particular document, we've only applied styles for heading level 1, level 2, and level 3. So that's all that we can possibly show in this document. For really complex documents, you might have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, even 9 or 10 levels of headings, particularly in complex legal or government documents. In that case, you can choose how many of the levels that you have will appear in your table of contents. We're going to leave this at 3 because we want all of the different heading levels that we have selected to show up in our table of contents. We have some options here. We've already specified that heading 1 is table of contents level 1, heading 2 is table of contents level 2, and heading 3 is table of contents level 3. Now the nice thing about this is if you use different styles or you name them something differently, you can go into the options here and specify which of the styles that are in use in your document should be included and at which level in your table of contents. I'm going to click OK and OK again to insert our table of contents. And there we go. If we look at it as a full page, you can see that we now have a table of contents that's been auto-generated. There are a couple of things that we may want to adjust. First, the table of contents should generally not appear within our table of contents document. Now there are a couple of things that you might do. One thing you might do is simply select the text for the table of contents and press Delete. That will remove it from your table of contents. The downside of that is If you make changes in your document and need to update your table of contents, you can do that by right-clicking Update Field, Update Entire Table. Every time you do that, though, your table of contents text is going to appear back once more. Now, we don't really want that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my table of contents, which is Georgia, size 24, bold, underline. I'm going to turn it into a different style, let's say normal text, and then I'm going to format it so that it looks just like heading 1. This is a little bit of a trick. So it was Georgia, size 24, bold, underline, with no space after and single spacing. Is that right? I think we did have space after. How many spaces did we have after? Looks like 12 points after. Okay, so let's change that. So now we have text that looks just like our heading 1, but is actually normal text. Now, as long as we don't modify the normal text, which would reset this, we'll be okay. And now we can right-click on our table, select Update Field, Entire Table, and the table of contents has been removed from our document. For complex documents, it's absolutely imperative that you include a table of contents. This is a fairly complex document, but it's only 17 pages long. Many formal reports, particularly consulting reports or project reports or evaluation reports, can be in the hundreds of pages, and a table of contents can really help your reader find what they're looking for. And you can do this automatically using styles in Microsoft Word. The really nice thing is we still have the navigation pane. If I decide to move some things around, all I have to do to update the page numbers, like I showed you earlier, is right-click on the table of contents, select Update Field, Entire Table, and all of that text will reorder and the page numbers will reset exactly the way that they should be. Hopefully, through the course of these 3 workshops, you've had the opportunity to dramatically increase your skill in Microsoft Word, particularly as it relates to complex document formatting, using sections, section headers, and styles in Word. This concludes Part 3 of the Microsoft Word 2013 workshop.